Welcome back to another day of Ruminate. We are on day 4 now in our Greatness of God series. And so far, the verses that we've looked at have been more on the descriptive side of God's greatness. But today we're going to mix it up a little bit and look at a real life example from Jesus' time on earth. And so, as you'll see as we go through this verse, really will once again just showcase God's power and authority. So we're going to be reading Luke 9:42 through 43. And keep in mind, like we've been saying, we want to ruminate, slow down, and focus on these verses. So while he was coming, the demon threw him to the ground and convulsed him. But Jesus rebuked the unclean spirit and healed the boy and gave him back to his father. And all were astonished at the majesty of God. So we're going to read through this verse again, but this time we're going to take emphasis on some key parts. While he was coming, the demon threw him to the ground and convulsed him. But Jesus rebuked the unclean spirit and healed the boy and gave him back to his father. And all were astonished at the majesty of God. So from our previous studies in the last couple of days, we know that God has authority over all. And when we say this includes unclean spirits or demons. What we see here in this passage is clearly played out is that Jesus effortlessly was able to cast this demon and heal the boy. And it even uses the word heal. He wasn't like half done or whatever. He completely healed him. Of this, and so it's God's authority that gave Jesus the power to execute this task. And we know how God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit are the same, 3 in 1 and all that. So it kind of all goes together in this, but he had that authority to do so. And also in looking at his authority and casting out this demon, if we actually, look back in verse 40, it highlights where the father was bringing the boy to be healed, but he first asked the disciples to cast the demon out. But in the verse it says, but they could not. And why is this? And it's simply because they don't have the same authority that God has, that Jesus had in this moment. So they weren't able to do it. But it was Jesus who was able to finally cast this demon out with his authority to do this. But we also want to highlight verse 43 in this, which says, again, and all were astonished at the majesty of God. And again, we hear that word all. It wasn't some, it wasn't few, but all. All the people that were present were astonished at the majesty of God. And to impress everybody, you must have done something pretty cool. And Jesus did something pretty cool. He cast a demon out of a boy and healed him. But in also, looking at this verse in the New Living Translation, it says a little differently. It says, awe gripped the people. And I really like what that says, because it just makes me think that we should be in awe, gripped by this awe and praise, just at the greatness of God as they were in this moment. So for reflection today, thinking through this passage, we saw that God has the power to cast a demon out of someone. Though it may not be a spiritual demon, are there demons, sins? We're looking at this more as like sins where maybe points in your life where you've allowed Satan's authority to take over and not God's. So are there areas like this in your life that you need God to cast out, these points of sin, that you need his authority, let his authority in and take it out? And kind of following with that, will you recognize his authority and go to him for this? It's one thing to desire it, it's another thing to actually go for it. So just think through that today. And just a special note that I wanted to throw in is, no matter what battles you're facing, always feel comfortable to reach out to us in any way, because though God is the ultimate one that, casts these sins out and all that, it's not our desire for you to go through it alone, to go through battles alone. That's why we're here, is to come alongside you. So please, reach out in any way. That's why we're here. So again, thank you for joining us for another day of Ruminate. We will see you back here tomorrow as we conclude our Greatness of God series for this week.